With me today is someone who I think should be in the limelight more than he is, but he'll explain why that is not the way it currently is, and what he's doing and why he's noteworthy. Welcome, Slobodan.
Well, thank you, Remco. It's a pleasure to be in this podcast. It's two things that I care about a lot, that I've benefited from a lot in my career, WordPress and performance,
Yeah.
which probably means not a lot of people care about it if it's easy to make money off of it. Why I'm not in the limelight? Let's talk. I think I am. I think lately I kind of have been, but I've always been the kind of person that implements stuff, like does the work. I don't like to talk about it until recently. So let me tell a bit about myself. I've been in WordPress bubble, let's call it that, because it definitely is a bubble for,
It
I
is
don't
a
know,
bubble.
50,
It is a bubble.
15
Yeah.
years. Like we go back to like the blue dashboard, the ugly blue dashboard from 2.x. So that's when I started. And honestly, I taught myself how to write code, how to do the front-end development, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, before jQuery even. And back then, all the lessons were, all the lessons were, make sure the code is up to standards, make sure you do this. If we only had been doing that for the last 15 years, we would not need to talk about performance right now because everyone would be doing it properly. But
But that's not where we are.
So just to let the people know what I do, I also host a podcast. It's called No Hacks Marketing. We like to call it the only podcast that's strictly about website optimization, in the broad sense. So that's SEO, that's kind of content optimization, speed, performance, all that. We have guests every week. I'm sure you might be on a future episode if you feel like it. I think I will. Other than that, I am a website optimization consultant. I've spent, 5 years as a CRO in e-commerce, CRO consultant in e-commerce, but also performance and technical SEO. That's really, well, to me, that's about writing good code. Like if your code is messy, and can I use bad words on the podcast?
I don't care.
Shitty. Yeah. Let's put it that way because that's what it is.
If it's shitty, it's shitty. There's no other word for it.
There we go. I guess. We are crappy. Yes. If the code is crappy, like it needs to be fixed, down the line at some point. So that's really what I do. I fix bad web experiences, whether that's for bots crawling the website or for people trying to buy stuff on the website. That's what I do. I just come in and try to fix this as much as possible.
I think you and I have a lot of overlap. I mean, I know you and I have a lot of overlap. When people ask me what I do, I start with, I make websites and I make them fast and performant and all that. And they kind of look at me like, what does that mean? And then I switched recently to, I help make the internet faster and better. And for some reason, that's easier for people to digest because, like, make a website, I don't know what that is, but I interact with the internet all day, and I know what it means when it's better and faster. So yeah, no, but great. I think there's a few interesting things I'd love to discuss with you, and probably, and this is what I ask everybody who's on the podcast, like, what is the one thing that drew you into the performance side of things? Because
right.
You and I both come from the WordPress community, and if there's one thing easy within WordPress is to essentially do whatever you like, and you don't have to care too much. That is a choice. You chose, I chose. There's plenty of other people who chose to, not just do the here you are thing, but we both do the here you are, but the here is a way better version than what you would normally get. So what drew you into that side of the website building game?
Let me try to come up with an analogy. I know you like cars. Like, I happen to know you like cars. So let's say there's a workshop that builds a car a workshop that builds a car that looks good. They'll deliver the car to you. It looks great. Like it's just your dream car. You start the car. It's slow. It's leaking oil. All that shit. Yeah. Is that a good workshop? Is that a good car?
Like, well, depends on what I paid for it, but no.
Well, but let's say you paid premium or you paid not too low on that. Yeah. That's what, in my opinion, what most of WordPress, and it goes beyond WordPress. This is Shopify. This is all the CMSs where there's crutches to lean on, basically.
Yeah.
we build a website, and yeah, but it's WordPress fault. Like, they do it that way. I couldn't have changed it. I couldn't. No. That's not the case. Like, if you're building a website using any platform, like, you need to care about the end product. You can't just say it's slow because of WordPress, or you can maybe controversial, but you can't say it's slow because of Elementor and all the add-ons. Like, that's the one thing that I don't really approve. Like, all unnecessary page builders, let's put it that way. Like, when you need a page builder, you need it.
I have a very similar opinion on it. I will say I am coming around a little bit, but that's mostly because there are two page builders who are really putting in an effort into making their end product faster. One of them is Elementor, and the other one is Bricks.
They clearly,
there's movement, and as long as there's movement, I can see, okay, we can work with that. But if
absolutely, I completely agree with that, and I've seen that. Like 4 years ago, Elementor was
that was horrible. That was horrible.
Avoided at all costs. Like that's what. But to answer your question, what drew me into performance? It's really, I mean, going back to my early days of writing code, like writing HTML, and what I said, if it's shitty, it's going to be shitty for everything, for conversions, for performance. I just don't get how we got from like a light average web page 15 years ago that had basically what it needed to have, and that was it. Like, how did we get to, let's put in that library, let's put in that tracker, let's put in this, let's put that, let's host this render blocking third-party script, let's put it in the head, because why the fuck not? Because that's what the tutorial or Stack Overflow answer said. As you can tell, I get annoyed, I get upset, and that's why I'm in this. Like that's really why I'm in this.
So I think the I kind of share again a similar pull, like born out of frustration. So one of the first things that I did differently in WordPress than my contemporaries at the time, and I say this in a very old-fashioned way, but I do mean at the time, because that is we're talking 2008, 2009,
right?
When I started really. So I came from an enterprise background and building projects, which happened to have a lot of website components at the time. Funnily enough, I built a lot of stuff in Lotus Notes as well. Don't get me started on how foobarred that was. But to come back to the point, so the realization that anybody could essentially build a website, not fully understanding the implications of the choices they make along the way, I think really started to take off around 2010. Like WordPress got custom post types, custom taxonomies. It just became a very versatile tool, allowing to be used for way more than it originally had in mind, which is not a bad thing in of itself. But it brought the problems you mentioned. It meant that people just kept adding stuff instead of thinking about the consequences. Yeah.
Do you remember the days of how to do X without a plugin, like the tutorials? That was amazing, right? That's kind of what started all this mess, because it just showed people, like you said, anyone can do anything with WordPress, and that was a very cool thing at the time. Like, it was amazing. But
I think it's still cool. I think it's still cool.
It is.
I think
it is. But on the other hand, anyone can do anything with WordPress, and that's the bad side of it as well.
Yeah. So this is a perfect example of essentially it's a two-sided thing. It's a Janus thing, right? One side makes you happy, and the one side makes you sad. It's
or both sides make some people happy and make some people sad and angry. Let's just put it that way.
I bet there's folks that get mad on either side. Yes,
absolutely.
But I guess there's also folks that will be happy about either side. So. So you mentioned a little bit about doing optimization,
right?
And since you just mentioned that a lot of your triggers into why am I doing this line of work were around, I'm just going to call it lean and mean, because essentially I think that's where it boils down to.
Exactly.
So, what is the one thing that you really thrive on? Like, okay, this is a great project. This makes me happy because I get to do XYZ. What is the thing there? I mean, let's start with this. Do you build sites from scratch?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Not anymore. Definitely not. I mean, it's been years since I've done that. So definitely not. I find a lot more joy in just, trimming the fat from websites, like literally doing that. The kind of project that brings me joy is really just going there and, let's say, using web page test and seeing, like I said, like my biggest trigger these days is third-party render blocking assets, because no one in their right mind or any other mind should be doing that ever. So go to a website and see that, like, they have 17 render blocking assets.
Yeah, clearly they've never run Lighthouse.
Well, or any tool, I would say, or anything at all. So when you see something like that, I just, it makes me happy. Like, these small changes, like, will make everything better for this client, especially. And again, I need to make this a point. If it's a third party, if that domain goes down or is slow, it's going to white page your website for a minute, and then it's going to say, hey, I gave up. Like, I couldn't get anything.
It's a dependency you don't want, and in many cases you don't need. It's specifically not in that place.
Never in that place. Even Google Fonts, like
I would even say especially Google Fonts, because there's an extra component there, and that's the privacy part.
Yes, that's a completely yes, absolutely. That is there's not enough time to talk about that as well.
No. That's definitely not a podcast.
Yes, but even the Google Fonts, they don't have an SLA, but they say we never went down, and like that's good enough for most people to put that in the head of every page of their website, and like it just doesn't make sense. And another thing in WordPress that really makes me WooCommerce, WordPress, all that space, the entire space, when you go and see that they have every CSS and every JavaScript file from every plugin loading in every single page of the website.
Yeah,
and things are getting better. Yes, that's definitely a fact.
On that particular topic, because I'm aware that a lot of people are not aware of the fact that there's a solution for this. What is your favorite solution to only load on a page that what you need, besides just hand coding everything yourself?
The easiest is there's a plugin called, I think it's CSS JavaScript Asset Manager or something like that, where you can just check the boxes, like load it only on this page, load it only in this template, like whatever. That's my go-to, because it's by far the easiest one to, when you're working with a website that someone else built. But when you're building a website yourself, you need to have those snippets. Like, you need to have that ready.
Yeah. It's I'm always surprised of the amount of stuff that's being added without even thinking about the consequences. So let's take a form, right?
Mm-hmm.
For most websites, that's on the contact page only, and they may have maybe a form somewhere else. But let's just say I think this is safe to say, I think about 80% of the sites will have just a contact page with a contact form. To then load every single asset that particular contact form uses on every single page all the time makes zero sense. And I just don't get how that's not part of their...
Yeah, but do you know why that happens? Because again, the Stack Overflow answer or the tutorial just said WP&Q script, WP&Q style, and that was it. There's no if this then that, if this then that.
Yeah, I get that. And still, I would argue that in this day and age, that if you're not conscious of your impact on that, and that being whatever's being loaded, whatever is limiting your performance in one way or another, I think, at least on the side of Google, there's been quite a bit of push to get us to understand we need to focus on this. So if you're currently building solutions and you're not taking that into account, I think you're missing something.
Absolutely. I mean, the push you're talking about, of course, is the 2020 Core Web Vitals announcement and all that followed. Like that's what they made it kind of a mainstream discussion in an effort to lower their crawler bot electricity bill. Let's be honest about that. Like, they want to not waste resources crawling the shitty things on the internet. Like that's kind of the bottom line here, which is understandable, which,
Yeah.
which is how it should be. It kind of made it mainstream, yes, for a year. Do people really talk about all that stuff that much anymore?
You're asking me, or is that a rhetorical question?
That's both. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely not as loud as it was at
I
that
would
time
agree
frame.
with you. It's not as loud as it was, but I think that it's mostly because I think the those in charge there kind of
Mm,
went like, okay, we've been vocal enough. You should know by now. It should be part of
okay.
curriculum. It should be. I think that's kind of the. Okay, well, I don't know. It's my assumption, but I think the assumption there on my end is that they figure that the initial push that needed to be given is given, and from here on, you know, should be part of any curriculum. Anyone
Right.
jumping into the world of web development should understand that there's a way to optimize, and that needs to be part of your core stuff that you do. Obviously, it's
Right.
not, but I think that's what they're thinking.
I mean, we know each other from work camps, and like we've seen each other at conferences. How many?
WordCamp Norway
No.
2013.
Leiden was the first one. That was that was the first one, and then Norway, and
Work,
then there was a few more.
WordCamp Europe in
Yes,
Leiden,
yes,
the very
yes.
first one in 2013.
To what
So I
the
was right
very
on the year, just not on the location. Okay.
yes, yeah, and
So
then Norway, and then a lot
everywhere.
of work camps after that. Yes, including my
Yeah,
new
yeah,
home, Porto. So yeah,
yeah.
so how like you're still in WordPress circles. You are the performance guy. I'm sort of the performance guy among the. I'm not in the limelight, but for people who know me, they think of me. This guy cares about performance. Like they pretty much know that, and I'm that
Yeah,
guy. What does
yeah,
that tell you about the entire ecosystem? If
yeah, yeah.
we're the guy, that means
I,
there's no other guys and girls in the ecosystem.
I think you're proving my point. It's the push was done, and from there considered to be enough of a push.
Yep.
But it's um, I'll answer this differently. So my sort of rebranding of my personal site and the stuff that I do, I put performance first, not necessarily just in what I produce, but also how I brand myself. And the reason for this that I don't do it any different than I did years ago. The thing that I do differently is talk about it and share more. So the branding is not just, hey, this is a label, it's a great label, moving on, and but it's also a continuation of something that was already there. And I know from that perspective, there are plenty more that are doing similar stuff, that are doing great stuff. Not everybody touts the way I do it or you do it in terms of performance, but and this is very well possible to be a bubble within a bubble.
Maybe, yeah. That's actually that's likely. I would say.
Yeah. I'm saying it as I'm realizing it. I'm saying it, so I'm like, yeah.
One thing I've noticed. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so I can point out a few folks that do have a performance first mindset, but I also know some really smart developers that are doing fantastic stuff that if you ask them, so what about performance, or how have you taken performance into account? They go like blank, like I didn't. Or
but
there's a few things I know to avoid, so I avoid those.
There's a caching plugin.
Yeah, that's I have an opinion about that.
I don't think I do. Like the whole thing with, we're talking about mainly front-end performance. This is what I do, front-end performance. You probably do both, but I think you're focused on front-end as well, right?
Yeah, I do both, but
okay.
I try to be as smart as possible in terms of focusing there where the budget allows me to be most.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. Like with front-end performance, it doesn't matter what happens on the back end. Like as long as that page is pushed from the server quickly, like it needs to be. If the page is delivered, like the response time, and the page comes back in 400 milliseconds, but the page has, I don't know, maybe 200 requests on it.
Yeah.
And it needed to have 50. It doesn't matter that your backend performance is amazing. It really doesn't, because it's going to load slowly for most people
Yeah.
because of the limitation of their devices.
I'm thinking mostly of the exception being scaling. So
Yeah.
one of the things I find amazing that people haven't picked up on it yet is, as soon as you add something like e-commerce, the best example, as soon as you add something in cart, everything on the site is no longer cached, because
really?
you have a cookie.
Okay.
So that cookie means, as I'm progressing to shop for more items, I invalidate cache, which means if I'm one of the 10 folks doing that in a minute, it's all gravy. Doesn't matter.
Right.
But if I'm one of the 10,000 people who just got an email, and the tracking parameters, for instance, that are used by MailChimp or any of the other, or advertising, for instance, all those tracking parameters also invalidate cache. So anybody visiting through a link like that sees an uncached version of your site, and then the problem you just mentioned becomes a problem for everyone.
Yeah.
Because you can cache the shit out of it, but if you bypass cache, then you are looking at raw, and then backend smart things, they become important. So
they do backend stuff. Doesn't matter to me because I don't do it. Let's put it that way. It does matter.
Yeah.
But it can be perfect. Like, it can be incredible. It can be 100 milliseconds to deliver the page, to get it back. And then that page is going to be 10 times bigger and have 10 times more assets than it should have had.
And as the volume of the traffic,
of it matters.
Yeah, and as the volume of traffic increases, that becomes a bigger issue. Because no matter how you look at it, the time to first byte is the best indicator, I think, of letting you know how efficient your site actually is. So
absolutely, yes.
If that's provided by cache, that only tells half the story. But when you test uncached time to first byte and it's fast, you're generally not going to have a problem if there's more people. But if your cached version is fast, but your uncached version is not, you're going to have a problem if you send out that newsletter. Which is why, help, my site went down because I sent out my newsletter to 10,000 people. Yes, but of course it did, because everything was uncached that they saw, and you had a great offer. Everybody wanted to check it out.
Right.
And here we are.
Oh, that's definitely a huge issue. But we mentioned core web vitals and all that stuff. That is, people need to know that has nothing to do with the server. That has everything. Not nothing, but
close
to nothing. Let's put it that way. That has everything to do with the device the user is on. I had a client recently. I made their website faster last summer. It was very, very bad. Now it's very okay. Let's put it that way. And their core web vitals started failing again. They bought traffic that happened to be 3G traffic, like from slow devices, from markets where it's just slow internet, slow devices, slow everything. And then Google monitors that, and they say, okay, this is not loading fast enough for most people. Like, you need to take that kind of stuff into account when you're building the website and the pages. I mean, a plain HTML website can be slow as hell.
Yeah. In the same way, and I love this example. I generally am of the opinion that caching shouldn't happen inside WordPress. I think front-end optimization should happen inside of WordPress. I think front-end optimization in the most hardcore way, and I know that's how you build your sites or optimize your sites. You said you didn't build anymore, but
I'm retired from that. Yeah.
I'm retired. Nice. I like the sound of that. There is a scenario where caching your site by a plugin actually slows down your site, because like, just consider this: the whole application needs to load first. That's WordPress and every single plugin and theme. Then we have one particular plugin that needs to do some checks. Do we have this as a cached version? That's a quick check, but it's a check nonetheless. Then from that, oh yes, I have a cached version of this page. I'll then serve you this page. That's quite a lot that needs to happen before caching is actually served. So if you're looking at high traffic sites that are having bursts, caching will hurt. So you should, in my opinion, cache on server level So Nginx micro caching is the best way, I think. Combined with cloud, whatever you can do on, well, I should say, whatever you can afford on Cloudflare.
Well said.
Yeah. Everybody wants enterprise, but nobody wants to pay for it.
It's not cheap. For
It's not
most
cheap.
people, it is
No,
quite
no.
expensive. I know.
I think it starts at 5K or something.
It's not cheap.
Eloquently put.
One thing that, and this is something I haven't tried, but I think potentially has future in WordPress space as well, is Cloudflare has those ESIs or edge side includes. I haven't worked with that, but if you can cache the entire page on Cloudflare, like on their servers, and then have those includes just replace the dynamic parts of the page.
Yeah.
That is definitely something I haven't had a time to really even try that. I've seen some people write about it.
Yeah.
Where they basically deliver a fully static version of the page, and then they combine with the dynamic version and just replace some things. I think with edge side includes, you need to build your website in that way that supports it, of course.
I've seen those. So I have a few clients that I use. Need to say it correctly. So I have a few clients. So one in particular that uses that only blogs in Dutch. And blogs a lot in Dutch. So anyone visiting from Russia, China, India, really they care less about it. So what I have implemented for them is part of their web application firewall inside of Cloudflare. That if you are from that region, you then see okay, just let me show you're human.
Okay.
And if you are, you move on. So that check, that let me show you're human, is built as a variable inside a static version of their site in the same way that you just mentioned.
That's really smart, yeah.
But moving on from that is super interesting. Like, how much could you do? Yeah, interesting.
You could do everything. Like you could like, when you're loading pretty much any web app these days, and there's the loading stage when it's just flashing, you can just show that until you get the include and just populate. Let's say you want to personalize your e-commerce stores and you want to show different popular products depending on the user, and that's going to be your include. Just have that section, reserve the height so you don't mess the CLS, going back to Core Web Vitals, and just push that to the edge cached version of the page and just include that.
You have not built anything with that yet, but you
never. Again, I'm kind of trying to move myself away from web development and more into building tools. And I don't know, CRO is still a passion of mine. I really love doing that. So I haven't had the time, but I will try something soon-ish for sure. I think that is a lot of making WordPress work with that, or allowing it. WooCommerce, let's just say, because e-commerce again is where the money is.
Yeah, for sure.
And where the personalized stuff is. Allowing WooCommerce to do that and work with Cloudflare, I think that could solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, it's a wonderful example. So this started with me explaining that caching can hurt your performance. It's just, and this is mostly a thing of volume, right? But Cloudflare is something that needs to be in the mix. If you're not thinking in terms of moving stuff to the edge already, then this is your wake-up call. Start thinking in what can I move to the edge? And Cloudflare to me is the perfect example. There are other examples if you don't want to, if for whatever reason Cloudflare doesn't rub you the right way. I guess that can happen. But I'm all in on Cloudflare. But yeah, this is a great example of where I think optimization should go. Rather than fully headless type of stuff, because that's a different approach to sort of the same problem.
Right.
But
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, headless WordPress is kind of a sexy idea, and it has been a sexy idea for like 8 years now.
Yeah.
Which kind of tells you that it's not really ever going to hit mainstream, because it's still the 1%
niche
of WordPress.
Yeah, I think it's super niche.
I think it's great. I think it's great. Yeah.
I think there are a few scenarios where it makes sense, but on the whole, in fact, my newsletter goes out today highlighting this particular fact. And when I wrote out it in my newsletter, I figured I need to write a proper blog post about it, because I think the locations where this makes sense are few and far between, for the most part, because you need great hosting and proper application architecture before this actually becomes an issue. Like, the amount of stuff that you have to do to fix being headless, it's just not worth it for me. There's other ways to do it.
That's what I think as well. Yeah, there's other tools, other ways. To go back to headless and why it's a niche, like WordPress is what, 40-something% of the web these days? Like
43 something, yeah.
43 something. And let's say like there's 100% of people that built those 43% of websites. Like, what is the percentage of website creators, let's call them assemblers, developers, whatever, that even know that headless exists? I would say it's under 5 for sure, and probably much lower.
Yeah, it's quite possible.
So
it's quite possible.
It's just not going to happen.
If you're including the Elementor crowd, the page builder crowd,
everyone, and people who just set up a WordPress website on their own without necessarily a page builder,
they're not going to know. They're not going to care.
Are they included in the 43%?
So the 43% is based on the number of sites for the top 10, right? 10 million most popular sites.
Yep.
I think.
There's a lot of
I was at Cloudfest this weekend, and there were two interesting talks, both mentioning the number of active WordPress sites, and the variance in percentages was quite different. Because
I want to hear that.
So it depends on what you count as an active site. It depends on what you how you calculate what it is you're using, and from there you're subtracting, not subtracting, you're calculating with an assumption that the rest outside of what you know that you just measured by by bots doing their thing, you're assuming that the rest is going to work the same way, but you don't know that. It's an assumption.
You don't know that's correct.
No. So yeah, there were two folks sharing different numbers, and I don't have the right answer in terms of what I think is the best approach, but because we've been using the build with statistic for years now, even though build with changed their source of data from Alexa to Google. I still think we're just going to have to use that, because it doesn't make sense to come up with a new percentage now. But in terms of what is a site, do we,
look, if we have to ask the question, what is a website, that means we don't know how we're measuring it. Like, let's just be honest about that.
So what is a WordPress site? Is a static version of a WordPress site still a WordPress site? Yes, it is. But when you scan it, it doesn't tell you it is WordPress. So that percentage that we're just discussing in terms of how many people actually use headless versions of WordPress, we don't know, because we can't properly measure those. But yeah, is it necessary? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, I guess. If you really care about performance and like you want to build your own stuff, maybe that's an easier way to go. Like when you control literally everything, headless work, not necessarily, but maybe
could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
I want to share something that literally came to my inbox this morning. It's Rank Math. They have a page builder now, I think, WP Spectra, because it's an email from Rank Math that just talks about that and comparing it to other page builders. But I'll just read the numbers real quick. I never heard of it before, but like they brag about how it's better than Elementor, Beaver, and all those other. Assuming that's even right.
I guess they would
of
be
course,
if they're marketing themselves. But
there's a table that reads the data from Pingdom about performance and page speed and GT metrics and all that stuff. So basically, blank WordPress, 26 kilobytes, 6 requests. I don't know what page this is. Maybe it's homepage, whatever it is. Elementor Pro,
Probably.
2 megabytes, 2 megabytes and 50 requests. Beaver Builder, 1.8 and 29, and then they brag about Spectra being 1.8 and 22. Like, even to go from 6 to 22 is like, I will never approve and understand that. Like, if one plugin makes you go from 6 requests to 22 requests.
So the number of requests, I will
not
say, I will say this with HTTP2, I'm less concerned about it.
It's more about the
prefer-
recklessness. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Absolutely. It's more about the recklessness of like, how many of those are necessary in this particular page?
Well, you know, if we're talking page builders, my logic is still that if I can do it without a page builder, I don't need to load a whole plugin to take care of something that is already inside WordPress itself. So full site editing, I've been using it exclusively for about 7-8 months now. Are there bugs? Oh, hell yeah. Some are not even funny anymore. I had a bug where if I added a hashtag, so a hashtag 055, right? The number 55. If I added that somewhere, it got added as a tag, like a literal tag inside my, and I'm like, it's not supposed to be a tag. So why are we doing this? Because it made no sense. That's a funky, quirky bug, but you know, there's more. This was one that stands out to me. Like,
why did this happen? Yeah, that's the question there. The main problem, this, in my opinion, the biggest problem with WordPress performance in general is people using shit they don't really need because they saw the demo and it looked cool.
Yeah.
Like, how many websites have a page builder that looks like the demo? Because like, if you don't even know what your website should look like and you get inspiration from a demo of a plugin, you don't need a plugin. Like, maybe you need simple layout, simple pages, and maybe we're just old and we're just yelling at clouds saying that. But dude, you can't just load Elementor because you saw the demo and that one page looked nice. That's not how the website should be designed.
I think you're right, but I also think that's a very difficult one to solve because you're essentially asking people who have no idea what to look for. They be like, let me see if this looks good. Great, do it.
Is that a good way to do anything?
No. That was not a rhetorical. That was a question.
Yeah,
it's not. No. So I think that's a difficult one to solve. So you just said this is something that I worry about or something like that. But like, what would you consider the biggest challenges we have going forward? Is it that
exactly
people not fully understanding the implications of their choices and the tools that they use? Is that it?
That's exactly what it is. Like, do you want this super size? Do you want fries with that? Like, we're in that state of WordPress evolution. Like that's where we are. That's literally where we are, because, you know, do you want these 20 CSS files extra with my plugin? And people don't even know.
You want that as a menu or just a burger?
Yeah, exactly. I think that
if you want the menu, do you want to supersize that? Yeah. That's a great analogy.
We have a special promotion today. Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That has been the biggest problem for, I would say, at least the last 5 years, probably longer, that the junk that's pushed, you know, to the browser because of irresponsible development, mostly by plugin authors, And then, I mean, if you're just a person, not a non-developer assembling a website, you're not going to know that. And then by agencies not auditing and vetting every single plugin they install. Like, we're not going to get there. Like, today, we're not going to go there today. But that is also a problem. That is also a very, very big problem in the entire ecosystem.
So I'm invited to speak at WordCamp Switzerland next weekend. Not this weekend, but weekend over. My talk is titled WooCommerce, but faster. You know, why make things complicated in titles if they don't have to be?
Exactly. Make it obvious.
Yeah. One of the things I mention as right, it's all optimized. It's great. Wonderful. Thank you for putting thought and energy into that. But from there, most folks just kind of go, okay, wonderful. It's done. Yeah. I have the caching plugin turned on. It'll do whatever it needs to do. And I'm like, no, every single update
Yep.
Every single thing you add, test. It's so simple. And even if you don't want to use it fully, continuous development and integrations and stuff like that, you don't need to go all
And
fancy.
you should. And you should.
And you should, but you don't need to if that's not if that's not your wheelhouse. If that's too complex, there's this will sound horrible in the context of what we just said, but there's a plugin for that, right? You can install a plugin which is at minimal cost, but it will tell you certain pages like, okay, so we went from 0.4 to 2.4, something's off here, right? You want to know, you need to be testing. It's never so the whole. So you raised a good example of things that are going the wrong way. I'd like to add to that it's most folks think it's a set and forget. And, oh, okay, I heard I need to do my updates. Okay, great, I'll do my updates. But you need to test. You can't assume. The whole assumption game is so strong. It hurts in so many ways. And then, they complain. It's not fast anymore.
But the reason that is, again, just an opinion, the reason that's happening is because WordPress is a crutch. Like, we just rely on it doing all the heavy lifting, and that's why, it's there, it's doing its thing, it's fine. I don't need to worry about anything.
Yeah.
And that's not to say WordPress is bad. Like, WordPress, I never want to hear WordPress is slow, because it's not. Like, install WordPress on the shittiest server you have, it's going to be fast.
Yeah.
Do it supersized and with fries, it's going to be slow, and like with any other platforms, that's going to happen. So that's really that's I don't like the fact how easy it is to slow down a WordPress website. I did a meetup presentation here in Porto at WordPress meetup, and one of the slides was one of the easiest things to do in life is to slow down a WordPress website, because you just let it be. You literally just let it exist. It's gonna find a way. Or give it to a client and give them admin access.
Yeah, I was going to give an example. Vikas from InstaWP was at CloudFest, and he mentioned that I think it was a brother, but he built a WooCommerce site for stuff he needed to sell, and the items were about 50,000, so not a small site. And he quickly ended up with an extremely slow site. So Vikas said, well, let me log in and see what's going on. So Vikas goes in, and he said, and I see like 120 plugins installed. None of them are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but they're loading everything everywhere all the time. And he goes, so the end result of that is that the client itself, and I say client because from WordPress's perspective, that's a client loss, because he now is on Shopify, and his problems are solved.
I do that every time. Spotify, Shopify. I've never gotten it right, so don't feel bad.
I think this was my first one. But I'm sure it's going to happen now that you've cemented it in my brain. But so that's a good example of someone having the best intentions, even having the resources in terms of his brother who knows stuff. You end up with a situation where nobody really should be going. Adding 100 plugins, I'd even say it. Maybe we should have a filter inside of WordPress that says, "Look, buddy, you're at 50 plugins now. You sure you want to add number 51?"
Yeah, that would be good. Also, maybe this is a business opportunity for a developer out there. Just build a plugin that lets the site owner thinks they're installing a plugin, and just block the plugin completely. Just make them think, do you want to install that? Yeah, it's working great. Just make it fake. Do something.
I will add to this that the whole discussion of too many plugins is a wrong thing. I kind of disagree, because it's more about what is being loaded and done during in those plugins, right? If you have 100 monster plugins, sure, not good thing. I maintain a site that has about 110, I think, and it's fine. It's working fine, because
that's a different question. It's not the same. You need
Well,
those 110.
well,
If you
so,
don't need the 50,
so
if you only need
50%,
5,
50% is custom, right? It does
yeah,
something small, something
yeah.
here and there. And the other stuff that is just needed for whatever purpose it serves. But yeah, it's not a black and white thing. Like don't have too many plugins.
It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
about the number. It's a number of
No,
unnecessary things. Like if you do everything everywhere all at once in WordPress,
yeah.
like it's gonna fail. It's just not gonna work.
Be cautious what you're adding, and
Exactly.
don't. I think that filter would be good. The 50, like let's say, I think it's a arbitrary number somewhat, but it'd be nice to have some sort of feel like, yo, dude, whoa, hold on. You're asking me to add a 51st plugin? What's wrong with the 51s you have? Fill out the survey first. And
Yeah. Upload your passport, like
yeah, exactly.
No, but if
We'd like to see you be sound of mind and body first, please. Thank you. Confirm
you know
this.
what the problem is there, because it's easy. Like you can't talk about us and other WordPress people. We know that 120 plugins is a lot. Like whether you need them or not, it's a lot of plugins.
Yeah.
Someone just installing the plugins and like running a website, they don't know if others have 5 or 10 or 200 or 1,000.
No.
Like maybe just say, that an average user has 17 plugins installed.
That's a good filter.
Maybe
that's a good filter.
That's something that should be part of the core.
You're a smarter man than I. I would have gone for a hard number, but yeah. Oh,
I mean,
so you have an e-commerce store. Okay, great. So the average is about 35 plugins. Okay. Are you sure? Because you're adding more and more. Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, that could work.
I have the name for the plugin. Are you sure?
Are you sure? Yeah, that's good. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Or don't drink and install. I would name that.
I might build it. It sounds fun. Are you sure?
Yeah. I mean, Hello Dolly still has legs, so why not?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a Samuel L. Jackson version of it. I don't know if it's still available, but there used to be a Samuel L. Jackson version of it.
I did one like 7 years ago. Hello Chloe. It was quoting Khloe Kardashian.
Oh, okay.
It was actually available. You could download. Not in the repo, of course. It was on GitHub.
So the Samuel Jackson thing, I think, was in the repo. Okay. I installed it on my brother's site, and we're both Pulp Fiction fans, like to the core. And I've never heard him laugh so hard when he first saw, like, dude, I got Samuel Jackson like everywhere in my site. That's awesome.
Wait, front end as well?
No, back end, back end. But everywhere.
Right. Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, that sort of stuff that made him very exciting. So in terms of exciting, there's a lot of stuff that we've talked about, things that you don't like, but what do you like? What do you see as a bright future ahead of us in terms of performance? Like, is there any tool, any movement, any focus you see happening? You go like, yes, that's me. Bring it on.
I don't like ending weeks on a sad note, but I just don't. I think it's going to get worse. I think it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. Like everything.
For those of you listening, it's a Friday.
We're recording this on a Friday. I don't see it happening. Like we're boiling the planet as humanity, and no one cares about that. Who's going to care about extra plugins?
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening.
If we're being
Yeah, there's more people, more individuals caring about it. Like, I think that's a good thing, but there's also infinitely more people who just are going to assemble websites and not care about it.
Yeah. So, and then here's the thing that if we're being cynical, here's the thing that I would like to add to that. Here we are optimizing the hell out of a WordPress site in any way, shape, form possible. And here we have YouTube asking us to add way more shorts. Here we have Instagram asking us to upload more shorts. Here we have TikTok. Like, the amount of data that needs to move from A to B for a TikTok, for a YouTube video, your website pales in comparison. If we're being cynical,
it's completely unnecessary. Yeah, that's a good point, but like, don't add to the fire. Like, there's no need, and it's not. Yeah.
So I should not be uploading this podcast with video.
But like 240p or something like that. Just be
for all time's sake.
Save the pandas, all that stuff. No, I had guests on my podcast, and we talked about Marcus and Marcus from the German SEO guy, like a really
Yeah.
Marcus Tandler, I believe.
Yes.
And we talked about that, like the impact of internet and all the supporting devices in 2020, I believe it was, 2019, so before the pandemic, was as high as the airline industry. We've reached that spot, and it's going to like double by 2025. It's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And we're crying about Leonardo DiCaprio flying private to pick up a new model. Like, that's not the
Was
problem.
she 25 again? The old one was 25, turned 25 again? Is that what it was?
Exactly.
Yeah. I understand his problem.
The 25.
No, look, I'm turning 50 this year.
Just
half
like
my age, we're not going to do that.
Like Leo. I know, of course,
No.
like, of course not. But it's a bigger problem than people realize. Like the carbon emissions caused by internet and supporting devices. Let's put it that way, because like that's what it is, and that's every TikTok, that's every Snap, that like everything.
I know. I said it jokingly, but you are right. This is a thing.
It's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem. So I do want to try to get on to end on a positive note. So what is the best tip you have for anyone looking to do some kind of optimization for their WordPress site that is just simple, easy, click, and you're done? What would that be? One thing is, and this is because I believe most people don't know this, know what the DOM looks like, what the page looks like that's generated by WordPress. Just do the waterfall chart in web page test and see how many unnecessary assets you have, and what's being loaded.
Yeah, what's being loaded and what doesn't need to be there. Remove the unnecessary. Let's start with that. We'll make internet twice as fast, at least. Just by doing that, first you need to remove, then you need to optimize what's left. Like that is really the formula you need to follow. If you just remove, you're doing great. You're doing really, really well.
That's a great first step.
Yep. I mean, you asked for one step. You asked for one thing.
I did.
And that's easy. That's easy. That's super easy.
Yeah. And on that bombshell, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I think there's a few more things we can talk about. So we'll try and organize a second one. But thank you for today.
Thank you.
And see you all on the next one.